Hello and welcome to Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan. And do you ever wonder why you do the things you do? Well, we kind of look at some various things, and today we're going to be talking about humus, human, and humility. And they pull up the screen here so I can share all of the information and put it on the full screen. There we go. And so it is understanding the shadow side of our personality and how, as we can more understand that, we can expedite fertile soil for relating and creating value. I mentioned last week, uh, well, we'll get that in a minute. Anyway, humus, look at some definitions. Humus is, according to the dirt doctor, if you've never looked at he's here in Texas, I do believe, but anyway, uh, it's a wonderful that talks about growing things, and just the information is just amazing. But anyway, humus, the definition of it from the dirt doctor is it is the last stage of decomposition of animal or vegetable matter into a soft brown or black substance. It's a very rich soil. And human, this is my personal definition of what a human is, that a human being is the highest order of beings on planet Earth with abilities to learn, abilities to create, abilities to care, and abilities to relate with others. And then there is humility. And humility is being who you are as a human being, but it's being unpretentious, it's being modest. I like to look at it as not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. It's realizing that, yeah, I'm okay. I'm one of those multiple 5+ billion folks on planet Earth. But to hold yourself in high regard, hold others in high regard, but it never means thinking less of who you are. So, creating value, an intangible and a tangible world. And I wrote this book back in 2006 and did a lot of travel with it, but it kind of just left it on the shelves for a while. Anyway, each of the chapters start with a poem. And so I didn't share the first poem last week, so I'll share it today. One breath begins the journey of life, ambiguous with joys and strife. What makes one breaks another. All of Earth's travels offer us to discover the value of self, sister, and brother. And then the poem for chapter 2. Thus begins the daunting task to capture illusions just beyond grasp. Trying, failing, learning, growing. God's faithfulness to us bestowing intangible values in which to bask. And so, intangible, the book is called Creating Value and Intangible in the Tangible World. And those intangible values are things that it's kind of like the quality world. It's something that we know and we want, that we may not have the exact definition for it. And so it's looking at the fact that what we as human beings do in life, we vote with our feet. If we do not like a product, and we quit buying it, try for something else. If we do not like the service that has been rendered, then find another source. And customers have a twofold motive. One is to gain a benefit, another is to avoid a loss. They just go hand in hand. Clients interact and engage with people and businesses that add value to their life. And in this one particular chapter, and from various insights of different people, I've come up with 20 qualifiers of what value is. So one is that value is fluid. meaning that it can flow one way. It's kind of like the lava lamp, that'll go one way and then it'll turn and it'll go another way. And that can happen to us. We can begin to go in one direction and then decide no and go back another way. But we as individuals, you are a composite whole and you cannot separate yourself from yourself. Everything you do affects everything you do. We are a being, and the values that you hold in private affect who you are in the public. And that whenever in looking at the different values, I inquired a large population of people to interview and to ask questions of, both professionals as well as clients and neighbors and students and federal inmates. And all of them concurred that for our life to be valuable, we need to have values. The thing of it is those values could change from one day to another. And those values, we can always make choices. And our choices are exercised as our choices are exercised. Meaning, as we decide, oh, I need to make a choice about something. And as you exercise that choice again and again and again, then that particular choice becomes stable. It becomes solid. And so in thinking about valuing and the things that comes to our mind, I think of Carl Jung and his conscious unconscious, and how that as we are more conscious about our unconscious thinking, we can, because that's kind of that thing that spurs us to say something or to do something in a behavior that before we'd have thought, well, that's not me. Where did that come from? But Dr. William Glasser called it the creative mind. And I like looking at that because whether it is that unconscious acting out of something that you're very much ashamed of, or it's realizing that the creative mind is trying to solve a problem, is trying to come up with something to help us to see what we are doing so that we can be more whole and complete in who we are. Because we cannot separate ourselves, all of the parts of us, from ourselves. Those have all been gifts that we have received. And that creativity is to use our resources in different and innovative ways. So, but again, looking at the creativity as well as the irony, that sometimes what we create becomes, well, I think of my grandson and my granddaughter, especially when they were younger, my two oldest ones when they were younger. And I'd have all kinds of things for them to play with, not only to play with, they like to build. They like to draw. They like to build, put stuff together. And so Weston was always wanting to make something. And I shared with him one day, I said, well, you don't always have to create something from scratch. You can take something and improve it or be new and improved. And it's the same thing, but it's a new creation. It's new. And anyway, to make a long story short, I created a monster there because he was just wanting to take everything apart so he could redo it and recreate it. But everyone is creative, and we're creative either for the good and sometimes for the not so good. Meaning that we can create lies, we can create fables, we can create destruction that turns out to not be so good, not only for us, but definitely for others also. In creation, the story goes that it began in a garden. And the Greek used the word paradisio, that is the word that they have derived as paradise for gardens. And humus or compost. I find that the secret ingredient in lush lawns and a beautiful garden is compost. But what is compost made of? Is what this was talking about. Humus, humanity, humility. Actually, humus is created from garbage. It's those discards of life. It's those objects that are unused that we no longer want it, that we no longer want. It's those things that have no value that we wad up and throw away, that we dip. Well, hopefully, I hope the majority of people are getting to the point that they will recycle so that we can keep our beautiful world beautiful and all of our gardens and our parks beautiful. But humus is created from garbage. And so here's a little picture that I drew of a waste basket. And sometimes we want to throw away those things that hurt, those things that are prejudice, those sorrows, those we want to throw them away, throw them away, throw them away. And so we try to get rid of them, those misunderstandings and failures and rejections and negative attitudes, bad habits and addictions and all that kind of stuff. But you notice that even in this garbage can that's sitting there on the soil outside, things have been thrown into, after a while it begins to blossom and bloom because things change. Things change and they can change. I like what Laura Beth Jones said in her book. Uh, Energy is everywhere, but stillness plays a major role in its conversion from potential to actualized energy. And so many times things change just with a little wait period. So value is creating value. Value is more about being than it is about doing. And value is becoming whole and complete. Value is finding joy in the work that we do. And I like what old Bill Gates said. He says, flipping hamburgers is not beneath your dignity. You know, not only that, street sweeping, weed pulling, there are things that the dirty jobs, the hard jobs, they're not beneath your dignity. They're things that need to be done. He says your grandparents had a different word for burger flipping. They called it opportunity. And as we can see, as we can find joy in the work that we do, value is an art, not a recipe. It is adding to, it's taking away from, it's an art, it's not just a recipe. And looking at the fact that value is doing right because it is right to do right, regardless of what the recognition you may receive or not, regardless of the praise you may receive or not, or regardless of the rewards that may be in the making. And value is relating, 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 relating. I think about Myrtle Hunt, the lady at Safeway that was a checker. And there would be multitude of people in her line. There'd be 4 or 5 checkers at the checkout counter, but people would be lined up at Myrtle's line. And others will call, well, I'm free, come on over here. And they said, no, that's okay, I'll wait for Myrtle. It was because she had such a wonderful way of relating with her clients and her customers. And so creating is, value is Stanley. Value is customer service that delivers. I have a quote here from Jeff Bird. Never do more than you say you will do, but never do less. And he told me, he said that sometimes people would think that that was very negative. Never do less than you say you will do. He said, but if you do what you say you will do, your service will explode. Because the sad thing is, in our society, all too often you don't receive great service. And so you have to do a better job than your competitor. And therefore it seems like great service. And there's a lot of rewards that come from that. And then value also brings referrals. And that, again, Jeff was pointing out the fact that if you hold true to what you say you're going to do, to hold true to, and do what you say you're going to do, then a lot of referrals will be given to you. And as anyone can begin to see, because we go back to the fact that if we don't like it, we're going to look for something else. And so if we look for something else that is excellent. So value is an attitude. I see myself personally as having a restless contentment. meaning that thanks to the values that have been introduced to me, and some of them have had to be learned to make them go the other way so that it would be a true value. I accept things as they are, and yet I challenge myself toward continued improvements and growth. And value is fluid. It's what we started out with, the fact that it's fluid. But here is something that kind of goes back just to repeat that. It may be adding bells and whistles for progress, or it may be removing bells and whistles and thus returning to simplicity. So, creating value is getting to know who we are deep down inside and being true to ourselves. So, thank you for being here, and many blessings.